when we're going, when you're first starting up your report groups, is that you kind of look through the examples of the reports and decide which ones that you want. We are going to set up a report group here for I'm just going to set one up as an example, but to show you all the kind of different steps that you would use to set up a report group or to clean up an existing one. So we're going to go to the switchboard today, and we're going to come over here to the setup, and then we're going to go to report groups and definitions. And this is a parameter that you would have permissions to be able to access or not. So if you don't see this icon and you need it, you should ask whoever does your employee permissions to give you permissions to this group. Now, whenever we have updates, you'll see, so this was 1.7.10, and these were the new reports that we introduced for 1.7.10. If you then there was also one at one time for 1.7.11, and then you would see the reports that were new reports that we didn't have before. So it was more for information for you, so you could say, hey, look at that, maybe I'll want to use that report. Now, most of the reports have a funny name because we have so many, and we need to know, we kind of give it a we kind of try to describe it in the title. If I go to this one, it says financials, and I'm going to move this over so you can see the definitions here a bit better. We have report name, and we have the definition name. So you'll notice right here under the report name it says balance sheet, but on the definition name it says GL balance sheet classified standard. So that tells us in our office what report it is. This is the name that it was renamed so that when you render or print that report, that's the name you're going to see on the top. So if you don't like our names, like, okay, budget comparison. Budget comparison is an income statement, but it has a budget. So and then this one, budget comparison dollar variance, it's an income statement with a budget comparison, but it's comparing it by dollars. Some do it by percent, some by dollars, and some with both of them. And so that's why I said you'll want to look at the reports and decide. So once you decide, let's say your office doesn't call it a budget comparison or an income statement, but a profit and loss, whatever you want to name it on the report group side, you just rename it. So I can say income statement, and that's what's going to print at on the header when I render this report. If a report isn't working and you were to report it to support, when you're in Report Generator, you're going to see these names here. We will ask you the name of the report. So you'll want to come into the setup and look on the definition name because that's what's important to us. That's how we know what report it is. Any questions about that part? Okay, so let's say we're going to start a new group. I'm going to come up here to the ribbon, and there's a plus sign, and there's a drop-down arrow right next to it. And I'm going to do a drop-down, and I'm going to say Add Group, if it lets me. Hold on a minute. Maybe I need to not be clicked on that. There we go. Add Group. Now, the yellow is reading whatever is written here. So I'm going to name this one just for today, and then Brink's office can delete it. I'm going to say Test Financials. Now, sometimes you're going to create a group that you will use just within your company. You need to render a report here and there based on whatever. Sometimes you're going to do a financial group or this one, and I want them to be able to be sent to a PDF all as one huge document rather than 15 different documents. If that's ever the case, that group, you would check this file fusion right here, and we're going to talk about that today. But right at the moment, I'm not. I'm just going to create a group. the date area right here is going to tell me, as I add reports to this group, what I want the default parameter to be. Begin current month, end current month, begin last month, end last month. Now, if it was a financial group, chances are it's going to be last month because I'm working in September right now for the August reports. So those are the quotes I would be rendering. Now, if I was in accounts payable and I was wanting to run reports, like an aging report or something, my parameter might be something like current period. So if I came right here, this is a check register, and this default parameter down here is going to start it in current month. I can change, once I go to render the report, the default. This is just to save you some time. So when you add a report, you kind of think, okay, what folder is it in? What's its purpose? How am I going to be using it when you set up a report parameter? So I'm going to go back to the one that we created. Okay. So since it is going to be a financial one, I'm going to put begin month and last month. We're going to come back and do a file fusion later and use this group, in fact, and I'll show you what that does. And that's when these other areas here would need to be checked, of whether it's a web, where it wants to go. But since these are just reports I'm going to render, this is all I need to do. So what reports do I want in here? Well, I probably want a balance sheet, right? So if you look here, it says available reports. This changed the way that we do this in 1711. And I still sometimes am searching to find out where a report is. So don't feel bad if you're having trouble finding something. So balance sheet, I don't see anything that says balance sheet here, so I kind of know it's under the general ledger. So I expand that, and I can see a whole bunch of balance sheets. So this is a balance sheet by funds. Now when it says like by funds here, this means that if I had lots of departments, it's going to have one, on the balance sheet, I'll have one report. One column will say, like maybe reserves, other one will say operating, so on and so forth, and it'll be columns on one sheet. If it says by department down here, it's going to give me a balance sheet for each department separately, so on a separate piece of paper. So I'd have all reserves on one sheet, excuse me, and then the next sheet would be the next one. This also tells me that it has some extra information. It's going to have the prior month-to-date information on there. Like I said, then because we have so many, please look at our examples and decide. So I'm going to just pick this first one as a to start with. Now, one of the things that I always think is funny, the balance sheet and the balance sheet classified is just because it's a different font. So when you see one that it just the difference is classified versus not the word classified or standard, it's just a different font choice. So I'm going to grab balance sheet and I'm going to just grab it and drop it over. Nothing, you know, I didn't have to do it carefully. You just had to grab it, hold it, and drop. Okay? And it doesn't matter where you drop it, so you don't have to be careful or anything like that. Now, if you don't want to report in your group, you just put your mouse over it. Don't click on it, but just set it over it, right-click, and then you'll have a pop-up that says delete it. When I delete it out of this group, it doesn't delete it out of my VMS report folder. It just removes it out of this folder. So if I was in accounts receivable, let's say, we put a whole bunch of reports in here for you. You might never need them, don't want them, don't like them. So if you come over here, and these are the reports, and you've already decided which ones your company's going to use, all you have to do is right-click over it and delete the report out of this group. If later on you decide, hey, that might have some value, we want it, you add it back in, okay? Now, once I get out of report groups and come back in, this test group will be on top. Okay, so I have a balance sheet. I don't really want to call it GL balance sheet, so I'm going to move that over there. Okay? Now, in addition to that, on the header for the date, it will say this word right here, period. And maybe you want it to say as of or ending, period ending. So if you want to change the label on the report to be something else, period ending or as of, and then it would give the date, this is where you can do that. Okay, what do we need next? We probably need an income statement. There is a column here for income statements. So I'll expand that, and there you go. There's all the ones that we have. Plus, there are some other ones under GL, which are down here. So once again, a lot of times the description tells you what it is, and so you'll want to go look. I'm going to go grab under income statements. There's one I really like because I think it's easiest to read, and it is called Budget Comparison Standard Dollar Variance Annual, which tells me that it has a budget, it compares it by dollar, and it has the annual budget on there. So it gives me not even the year-to-date, but also the complete year. And I like that one. But I want it to say here, income statement, profit and loss, statement, whatever you want to call it. And I'm just going to be simple, and I'm going to call it income statement. Okay. And I'm going to say as of this time. Okay. Now you want an aging report, let's say, or you want your bank statements. So bank reconciliations would have, the bank reconciliation that you selected that you might want to have in this report. So remember, the ones you want to choose have the word consolidated in it. So you're going to, I kind of like the detail one, so I'm going to just drag it over. Any questions about how to add them?
Just a question on, you said we remember why we're choosing consolidated. Could you remind us why we're choosing consolidated?
In the old days, like we're talking 10 years ago, when the bank reconciliations would run, it would, even though it was one bank account, it separated out operating or reserve expenses within that account, and that would have been, and this was your only choice. Well, Mike fixed the program to where now it just does it as the GL account number, which is the way you normally see it. And so we had to have a statement, because some people just like the other way, even though the majority didn't. So we still have this one that would separate it out, and then this one shows the operated and the any check that within that GL account number that you were reconciling, rather than separating the GL account number and the department.
Okay.
Okay, so you want consolidated. Okay. So now you have that. You probably would want an aging report. So aging, is under, if you want to write this down, resident transactions. So anything, any report that has to do with the resident's history is going to be here. So I'm going to expand that, and there is all these different aging reports. So we have aging applied, aging DS. DS means data sort. It's just a different way it sorts the data. But now they're pretty much the same. It's just the presentation. So you can look through all the different agings, like I said, and choose the one you like the best. I'm going to grab this one. Now, when it brought it in, when it decides to bring it in, okay, it shows, it has the date of last month, which is fine. This parameter here, let's just talk about parameters a little bit. Now, please don't be overwhelmed about parameters. I have been using VMS for more than 10 years, and I still sometimes have to look up what a parameter is because I'm not quite sure. That's what support's for. So if you have any trouble with parameters, especially in the beginning, you will just ask our office. We are more than happy to help. So this one, the period is the date range. This balance is saying this parameter here, which comes in as a default, says I want things that are less than or equal to 0. So anybody who has a 0 balance won't print on this aging report, okay, which is usually what people want. Now, the default parameter for balances here then is less anything that's negative, credit of, I don't know, looks like 9 million, etc., up to that much. Now, I don't want my prepaid, so I'm going to do a drop down, and I'm going to say I want anything from 0 up. So this first one says, well, it has to be greater than 0. And in addition to that, now this one is greater than 0 up to this point, okay? Now there are other things that parameters that you might want to add. Let's say you didn't want to have an aging report that had prior owners on it. So even if they had, if they had a balance, then you can add one called active or not, and then say I only want active owners, which are the current owners. So it's really up to you. And like I said, we'll help you with different parameters if you have a need for them. Now, this aging, I also happen to know, prints the balances highest to the lowest. So if I wanted ones that printed by address, you'll want to look like this one, DS by address, okay? Or this one is by street number. This one's by contact, okay, or lot. So there are a lot of different reports, and the by usually tells you the sort, So depending on how you want it to appear in your financial packet or looking, I kind of, well, doesn't matter what I do. It's whatever your needs are. Now, I want the same report here, but I want it to be a prepaid report. So I'm going to just right-click, say copy. And so it copied the new one. The difference between a prepaid and an aging report are only parameters. So I'm going to say, call this one my prepaid aging. And I'm just going to change my parameter down here to say credits up to 0. And this one won't give me zeros. Okay, so I just by changing the parameter and then changing the name up here, because this is what it'll be on, let's say, prepaid accounts receivable. IV for E, EIV, AVLE. Okay. So, like I said, you just go back and forth, and you put all the different reports that you want in. That sound easy enough?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have data in your test property, Dean?
I don't believe so, no.
No. Okay. So when you go to render report, you go to report, report generator. Now, you might have to. Okay. This right here is telling you what property you want to run a report for. So if I said test right there, then you would select your group. So there's my financials. He doesn't have any information in there. But let's say I wanted to do an aging. My default was through 9/30. Here is my balances. You can always override that by clicking on it. This is just the default. I can change it and say, okay, I want it through the end of next month or last month. So whenever you're going to render a report, you can overwrite your defaults. The defaults are just allowing you to not have to type it in, but just to go in here and then render the report. Okay? So that's pretty straightforward. Do you need me to produce data to show you?
I don't think so.
Okay. The bad part is I might have to go in here because I want to be able to do a file system. We're going to have data. So let's look and see if you had anything in your map. Nope, nothing. Okay. So I'm going to go on and I'll pull up mine, and then we will Now, in addition, when you run reports, do you ever have the need to have certain reports done all the time? Like maybe on the first of the month you want to run an aging report on all your properties, or if you wanted to run, I'm trying to think of things and I'm drawing a blank, but you have a need, maybe you know that certain properties, you talk to the board president and there's certain things you know you're going to cover every month. So you can always go in, select the property that you want, select the report group that you want to render the reports out of. So let's say I wanted to get, I'll just get an aging report just to make it simple. Okay. And I will select this one. Okay, so there's my default. Now, I kind of would like to have certain things, you know, especially if you have a lot of properties that you want. If I want more than one, I'm going to click this one. I'm going to hold down my control button on my keyboard, and I can go in and I can select other properties. And so right now I have these two associations selected. If I was to go and look at the preview, it would show me, give me an aging for those two properties. Now, what I'd like to do is set this up so that when I come in the morning, every whatever day, they are available for me. So to do that, we need to set up what we call a queue task. So I selected my reports. I'm going to hit the plus sign. And what it's doing is going to put this on this queue task. So now it brought me to the next tab over. I can tell it when I wanted the report to start. I can tell it how often I want it to run. I can do it weekly. I can do it monthly. Heaven forbid, hourly. But right now we'll do one time. You can also say, I want to see these parameters. So I'm going to check that and have it do, I can, you know, now change parameters on here. I can say I want it to go as a PDF, or you can choose a different type of file. You can export it. Now, this is the fun stuff, export. If I do the drop down, I can send it to the iExpert Financials. So remember, in certain places in VMS, if I went into entry and I went into general ledger, there was an iExpert tab here. Okay? You can, excuse me, it would actually be the tab. So the notes, and you can have it come in to certain areas, GL Financials, and have that report be sent here. So I can have the report sent here if I wanted to, or let's go back to our setup. Report generator. Okay. I can say send it to one of those tabs, the financial. I can send it straight to the printer. I can distribute it. So if you wanted to send it to one of your groups that you'd set up in property, architectural compliance or governing, you can do that. You could put it right to the website document page and we're going to do that tomorrow. Then the board members or whatever can get it. So you can have different things that you want to do. I just right now want it to go to a file. The default file will be to, it's usually your data. If you look at your property setup, because you will see now, right now, Dean's group, you are with, you're using the hosted version, and I know that the other two officers were thinking about purchase, so it's going to be wherever you set up your export to go in your program defaults, program controls folders. And for our hosted people, it will be our website data and then here, export. So it will default to go to this export folder right here. You can change that. You can tell it a different folder if you choose to. I don't know why I closed it. I should just let it open. Okay. Okay. So now I'm going to say go there, and then I'm actually going to send it back to yesterday, and I'll say save. Okay. What it does now is it puts it up in our software as a queue event. And the queue is something that is so wonderful. So right now, that's my report. It's yellow because it's past due. And then I'm just going to hit this refresh. When it turns green, I know it's processing. When it disappears, I know it's done. Now, if it was something like this report, it says monthly, it's going to go and do this activity monthly. So this one happened to be billing. And the last time it billed was on 9/8, and it's set up to do it again on 9/25. So there are different, so the queue is what manages those automatic things. If you'll notice here, we have the compliance notification. So if anybody had compliance issues added to their account, this is set up to daily send out an email to tell the homeowners. This is the architectural, so there's just certain things that are just set up in the software to automatically do. Now you see the report is no longer there. So if you set up a report to be done at night when you're not in the office, then the next day you come in, you go to your export file, and then you would come in, and then here we go, we would see our reports. And then you could just grab the report and print it or copy it to somewhere else. Sound easy enough? What's today? Today's 21st. So that is pretty funny. Okay. So back to our report groups and definitions. I have this one report group here that I can set up to send out my statements every month. And so a lot of this is just parameters. So I came in here, and one of the parameters that I added for my statement, let's see what's on this one, is to look for an email address. So by adding that parameter, and it's really not there, so I will add it. So it's under resident contact. It's called okay. Come on. And like I said, this would be something that please don't worry about. We will help you with these parameters. So this parameter here is looking for an email address. So I could set up in the queue to automatically email statements out every month. And I have one office that has the queue, bill them on the 20th, and send out statements via email for all their email people on the 22nd, or a couple days later, and for the next month. So this is a great, and the office doesn't have to do anything. It's all set up in the queue. Okay? So like I said, whenever if you have a need, just let us know and we can help you set up those parameters. All right? Now, I'm going to go to alrighty. Now, oh good, iExpert File Fusion Desk. Okay, so here's one that I set up, and I noticed I checked File Fusion, Web Featured Governing Financial Packs. So this one has no reports in it because it's blank here. So I could go to a report folder that I liked, let's say, CQ Financial Packs. Okay, and I could say copy this group, and all those reports would go here. So I'm just going to call this my I'm typing, nothing's coming out. I just put FF for File Fusion. Okay. Now, these are already copied over. This is not going to overwrite my dates. So it'll only when I pull new reports if I add something. Okay, so in mass mode, I want it to be file fusion. I want to be web featured. What this means is if I have it go into the web documents, you're telling it what do you want it to go under. So I want it to go under the area that says governing. I might, there's other things that you could, other areas like you could say financials or whatever, and I could just say financial package. Now, if I was going to send it out in an email using that the e-distribution for the governing group, then I can put in here a subject line for my email and type in the body, and that will get included. So, you know, whatever you would say here, and then, you know, attaches, whatever. Now, here's all the reports I might want in there. Now, let's say this is a file fusion, and the file fusion is going to let me add things that I can't do in a normal report group. One of those things would be bank reconciliation. Maybe, remember how I showed you when you do the bank rec, you can attach a copy of the bank statement? Well, maybe I want to send that bank statement to my board, so, or be it in part of my packet. So if you go over here into the available reports, there's a folder called iExpert. So there's one that says bank reconciliation. So I'm going to grab that, or bank statement, and it's right here, and I want it to be printed after this right there. So what I'm going to do after it is I'm going to use these arrows right here, and I'm going to move the position of that report. Right now, then that's how you get them in the different order when you render a report, especially in a group or even for presentation. So I have bank balance sheet would be first, income statement would print second, because this report group is going to consolidate them all into one big report. Then my bank reconciliation, then the statement, then I have an aging, I have a prepaid. Would you like to include maybe letters that you sent out for collections? Those delinquent letters? Well, if you go to the iExpert and you go to delinquency and you grab that and pull it over and you put it in here, it will then include all the delinquent letters you set up. Maybe you want to include letters for compliance. You put a compliance report. You can do different kinds of groups and set them up to render one at a time as you would like, you know, by the company, or you can set it up maybe to send to the Architectural Review Committee. If you had the committee set up, you could set up a group. You could have all the architectural and the task. Now remember, when you attach documents or render letters in architecture, they're all tasks. So you want to make sure that if that was your intent, that you grab the task one. So by clicking those over here, you can bring in additional information. Now, if you wanted to have an agenda first, so right here I would like to have an agenda to be part of my packet. I'm going to say iExpert agenda. I'm going to put it here in position. Okay. Now, the parameter on that is any begin last month and last month. Now, for this to render and be part of my report, and what I'm going to tell you will be anything you can attach other things. Okay, so if I go into entry and I go into account maintenance, the agenda iExpert okay. If I went to property notes and you do a drop down, you pick your property, there is one that says agenda. So if I created an agenda out of Word and I attached it here and I date it for the last month, because remember the date period it's going to be looking for is August. You know, if I was doing it today, because it's going to go to last month. And I add a document here. So this one, it says file, so you can drop and drag it, or you can hit this dot dot and go grab it. Anything that is on this tab that is agenda in that date frame will get included in that report. If you had an Excel spreadsheet that you wanted to include in your report, you could come in and you could go to somewhere, you need to look and kind of get familiar with, and some of this is just playing around, and that's another reason we tell you to have a test property so that you can play. Come here. Okay, so go back to my group. If I wanted, so expand. So if you look, there's AP notes. So if I put AP notes here and I wanted to attach a spreadsheet or, something, Excel or an extra document, if you put it on the AP note tab and then bring this in and you'll have your parameter, then that document would get included. Now you're able to do types. So if you wanted to, you can even add a type. So I could come over here and say, I want to have a default, certain types that you would want to include. I just want the agenda. I don't want everything or something like that. So by using types, you can narrow it down on different things if you wanted to. Okay? So this allows you to add other documents, whether they're a VMS report or not. Okay? Another thing that I like is if you look under the company, we have given you some reports, and they're called section pages. So if you wanted a title page or a section page to be on your reports to make it look even prettier. So I went in and I was playing around with this because I had lots and lots of fun. Let's see. Okay, so here's my title section page, and then I'm going to just put it, I want it to be first. And then if I wanted one to go, let's say, in front of the aging, and I created one. Well, let's see, I'll use theirs. And this one has their logo in it. So we're going to see that when we do it. So you can add different sections or cover pages and all that. Okay? So when you're creating a file fusion, you go in here and you put whatever group or whatever reason you're creating it, put it in the order. You can add different section pages. You can add the iExpert information, whatever you need. Once you're done, we want to go render it, right? So to create it, we're going to go into Report. We're going to go to Report Generator. I'm going to pick the property I want to create it for. I'll go down here and I'll find my File Fusion one. Now, when you come in and if they're grayed like these are, that means it's a File Fusion one and you cannot render just one report. So I'd have to go to a normal Unfile Fusion report group. And it will tell you right here, you have selected a File Fusion report and you can't change the custom parameters on those. But we render it the same way. We hit the plus sign to bring it in as a queue item. Okay. Now, you can say how often you want it to go. Once again, monthly, weekly. I'm just going one time. I am going to do a couple of them here. The first one, we're just going to do a file. It's going to go to that folder. So I'm going to say save it, and it queued it up. Okay. Now, if it's done, I can come back here. I'm going to do another one, same report group. This one, so you can see. So part of this class probably should be named Q Maintenance too, because you're learning about the Q. And the reason I'm putting these back dating time, because it's coming up with, I'm 3 hours ahead of Las Vegas, and so I'm trying to make it go back in time on the server so it'll render now. Okay, so that's the only reason I'm putting it back in time, just so I can show you. Now this one, I'm going to say, let's send it to the website. So I'm going to say, go to the governing website. It's going to go under the area for governing, and the note is going to say financial packet. And then I'm going to save it. Okay? Now, I could do this every month, all that kind of thing. So let's go. So I go back to the web document page, to the where I had the first one go, which was here, data, export. It's got to be this one. Okay. It was for Woodley. And there's today's report group. Okay, so let's open this up. So it's one PDF. Here's my cover sheet. So I did my cover sheet, and then I have my balance sheet, and then my income statement. And you can also open this up. It shows you, so I can easily, move around. I'm going to close you. Okay. Now, there's the bank reconciliation, and probably because this is a test property, I don't have any bank statements attached, so we're not going to see any. Wait, okay. Now, how many bank statements does this property have? Wow. Okay. Then remember, okay, so here's my aging report. And remember I said to include the delinquent letters too? So here's the delinquency. So here's copies of all the letters I sent out last month. Let's open this up so we can just skip down, see where we are. Okay, then that's the letters. Those are still letters. Okay, then I had my check register. Then my general ledger summary. So I had everything there. And on some of those, like I said, there were also title pages. So you can, well, we saw right there. Here's a title page. Accounts receivable and prepayments, 2002. And then this has a parameter for whoever is the manager. So 2 people were marked as employee manager for this property, so both our names are there. So that's just a merge. Now this one was created for one of our a company that actually put their logo, and they put it there. But so these are nothing more than C1 report designers, and you can edit and change them for the wording or however you want them to look. Okay. There is a video online telling you how to use C1 Report Designer. So I always suggest that you watch the video if you want to make some changes, like for the cover sheets. It's a wonderful tool. And then if you have any questions after you watch the video, just let a supporter or myself know and I'll help you. Now the other place I asked it to go was to the web documents. So if I go to property, and I go to web documents, well, it would help if I told it what property. Okay, web document. And if I look, there's my financial. No, that's not today's. Might not have. Oh, here it is right there, 9/21. Now I can just click over here and take a look at it, and there we go, popped it up. Okay. So, and I could have, like I said, I could have had it emailed to the homeowners, or to the group, or I could have put it on a note here. That would be this one would be, the AR adjustment, the AR financials. I could have sent it here if I wanted to. Here was one I did another time. So File Fusion and the Q are wonderful tools to let you manage reports and activities so that you don't freeze up your time. Any questions? Dean?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Hunter's Creek, do you have any questions? Sarah, do you have any questions?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. So does the process of adding reports or changing seem okay to you? I mean, is it fairly simple, easy to?
Seems like it. I guess we'll see what it is.
Yeah, like I said, one of the things that I find is the hardest is knowing what area to go. And sometimes I just kind of, that's one reason we have the examples of the report, so a lot of times you'll be able to say, oh, this is the report I want. And some of them are straightforward. If I was looking for something on the resident notes, I wanted to see something, then you could look right here. Oh, by the way, these matrix reports are really cool. In fact, under the company folder, I think there's a couple. Is it company? No. Right here. I'm going to grab one. You got to see these. These are really cool reports. But it's basically one of these reports that has these graphs, and it will, I already have it in a folder. I just saw it right there. Okay. So I had put these reports in this folder because I was playing with them. But they would show you how many letters you sent out in each category. So, if anyone, or how many calls you put. And it was just a really, really cool report. And so I'm going to grab, say, all companies because I'm not sure what the data will look like since these are just test properties. But, excuse me, report generator, we'll go to matrix. And there's not examples of these online. I never got around to it. Okay, so we'll say for last month, and I'm going to go to this one first. I think this is the one I like the most, but we'll find out. So, but it tracks, like, it'll give you a graph or a list of all the letters you sent out, all the calls you took. I mean, and so if the board ever says, well, what did you do last month? You have this nice report. Now, mind you, if you don't log your calls under the resident notes and stuff like that, it won't be on the report. But if you are using the software for its potential, it really is a good way to track information. Okay, let's do... Oh, I forgot to unclick that. Darn you. And I also want to show you how to do those emails for the statements. Now, the statements have to be emailed has to be one of our C1 report design reports. And this is, oh, I'm so sad. You know, I'm so excited to show you something, and I can't get it to work, huh? That's the downside of not having a real property. You know, this one that you play around with. When we meet tomorrow, we'll be doing a Q&A, and you can ask questions about anything. So it'll be the last Q&A. So bring any questions about any modular that you need, and we'll cover them. If you feel that you would like to have one just for your company, I can arrange that too. So if you'd like it just to be your staff, just let me know, and we'll schedule that. Okay, I'm sitting here waiting. I did hit that, right? Okay. Anyway, it's a great report. Play with it. You'll like that one. Okay, I want to show you the last thing. If I wanted to email, you'd make you can make a statement, but the big thing on it is really just adding a parameter. So on here, I think I added it to this one. Okay, this parameter email right here. So I said I only want people that have email addresses. If I did that and I was just to look, I would see how many people would pull up. And since this is test property, I think there's like 3. Now, if I wanted to set up 2, I could rename one statement with email, statement without, and I would know that the one, like I did up here, with and without, so that people that I needed to print them for would be the ones without, and the people that had emails, I'm going to set up for the software to automatically send those emails. So here we go. I see it's going to come up now. Okay. So I have 8 people on here that I have set up emails for. Okay. So the way I would do it for the queue, I would just say plus, and remember you can do this monthly. Then I'm going to say export. This is going to be e-distribution resident. And then once again, frequency, you can do it monthly if you wanted to. I'm going to save it. And that's all I have to do. Now, it automatically will send out those emails. Now, in a minute, I should get a pop-up for it, and I want to show you that. And then we're going to go look at the resident's notes, because once it emails it, it will update their account that you sent that email. And so I want to show you that. And after I show you that, that's, you know, the last one. Now, if I wanted to print the ones without, I would say no. If my selection was blank like this, it would give me both, okay? The people to email and the people not. And of course, you wouldn't queue that up because and say email, because there's no email addresses on those. Or I can make defaults like this one, which will just come up for me without email as not to send those, and then this one would be the ones with. Okay, so let's see if they've sent out already. So I'm just going to go to queue maintenance and see if it's there. And okay. I didn't see a pop-up. There it is. Okay, here we go. So here is I guess my name was on a lot of these reports. Okay, so if I went into one where my email was there, let's hope that, there I am. Okay, on my note tab, it goes in and right there. So resident statement was sent. I can click on the view and it pulls up my statement so you can see exactly. Now, the way the logic is built into this report is it sends the email, then it updates this. So if it's not on here, it didn't go out, something might have been wrong, and it didn't message as the sender that there was a mail, whenever an email gets rejected, how you get the notice, so you'll get that too. So this tells you, and you can, like I said, pull up and look at the statement. Nice, huh? You guys don't seem excited.
Taking it in.
Taking it in. So it's just a great tool. I love this, so you can go in and you can, like I say, consolidate all the reports, add extra reports. You can put your agendas. So you can create a financial. I know that I've been in offices where the managers get the financial from the accounting group, and then they have to add in their compliance and whatever and the agenda. They can create all of that in one file group and then have it all be as one document and not have to send to the printer a whole bunch of documents, and or send it to a file, and then if you wanted to print 15 copies, just say print this package 15 times, and it pulls in all those extra things they might need. So if they had something like bids and they wanted to include those, they, attach the documents on the property or somewhere, and then you tell through the IE expert to include anything. So if I had said AR adjustments, all these reports for AR adjustments would have printed. Now, mind you, that would have made for the most boring financial package ever, because these are just copies of the deposits and stuff. But, you have somebody who wants it, or a treasurer wants this, you can create and get all this documents really simply. You don't have to go one by one, scan them from when they printed or reprint them. You do it all from here. Okay? And iExpert will also allow you to export it to a file if you just wanted to do it on the fly. So, anyway, any questions, concerns?
So, if you have, so if I'm following what you just said correctly, so if you were to generate, say if accounting generated all of the reports and they did them as individual documents instead of doing the group, then they could be generated so that the manager could review it, and then at that time, would it be smart to convert it over to the one that's I forget that term is used,
iExpert? Or File Fusion?
File Fusion. Would it be smart to do it at that point, or how logistically does all of that work?
I think every office is different. I know that I've always been in accounting, and so I would give them the financial packet, and then they would go in and then include that with their other stuff. So if you had one called financials and you just sent it to, let's say, this note tab, once it was rendered, send the manager a note. They could pull it up, review it, and then when they were ready to do their part, the same reports that you put in your File Fusion, they might have one that said board packet or manager's board packet. Put all the same reports that you did, then add the reports they did, then they would queue theirs up, and it would be the same stuff. So and like I said, if you have any trouble or if they have any trouble, setting that up, you let us know, and more than happy to help you get your group set up. But it'll just kind of be your flow. If it works for you just to give them one packet and let them do what they need to do, so be it. But you can do a lot more if you choose to. Does that answer your question, Stephanie?
Sort of.
Okay. So
I think some of it is because I don't understand how all of these different things piece together because we haven't used it.
Yeah. Well, okay. So because really as far as the accounting department, the chances are when you give them the financials, you don't care about all the things they might include, correct? So
I'm not in accounting, so I'm looking at it from the property manager perspective.
Okay. So they give you the financial. So you might say, okay, I'm going to go and grab their financial group. So let's say it was this one. And I'm going to copy it into a file folder, and I'm going to call this one blank report group. Okay? So I'm just going to go.
Okay, so you're going to select the existing file, and then we would basically copy the existing one and rename the new copy to the board packet or whatever.
Yeah. So right here is a good example. So this one has title. Here's all the accounting information, right? So there's the agenda that you would have put on the agenda tab, and then under here, after the general ledger, that would have been the financial packet. That was it. But as a manager, they wanted to put in the compliance log, and so right down here you can see I have compliance. I'm trying to get there. So actually, just waiting for it to catch up. Okay, so here's a compliance log, and then the iExpert compliance would be all the letters. So actually, I'd probably move this up one. Okay, I'd have the compliance, and there's the letter. Here's the architecture, and then here's the stuff for that. So you can then put all the stuff that you would include on the bottom of this, and now you have one huge report with the financials that they gave you, because these are the same reports that they gave you when you reviewed, and then your stuff, and then you go ahead and do the same thing and create the report using the Q, the File Fusion, and then it has all the other stuff, the financials and your stuff, and it's all one document. And I have some people that have many because certain boards will want certain reports and some have others. So some people have, board packet, name of the property or a specific name so that they'll know that this one is for this group of associations because they don't want to know about compliance. They don't want to know about this, but they have other needs. And like I said, if you had other documents that you wanted to attach, then you can put them on there. So under the IA expert area, if you look, so the property documents, so that, and then we have the property note. So anything you put in that date range, those documents would be included. And you can even say maybe you had a type called bids, and that's what you wanted to go out or something. You can even add a type so that it would just bring in those types. Okay? And like I said, it doesn't have to be a VMS report. It can be, a PDF. I mean, not PDF. It can be that. It can be pictures. It can be an Excel spreadsheet, a Word document. Now, when it creates it, it will convert it into a PDF, though. It just brings it into but you save it there as Excel. It prints it at the Excel report, but saves it as a PDF within that group. Okay? So what you want to do is, once you know what reports you like, because like I said, there's lots of different reports, let me know, and I will meet with you, and I'll help you set up the report group that you need for your boards. Okay, Stephanie?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, anybody else? Okay. Well, that's it. Unless you have questions, and tomorrow's Q&A. So bring all your questions for anything. And on the schedule it says work orders and Q&A, but we already covered work orders, so we won't be covering it again. It's just going to be the question and answer.
Okay, Karen, this is Dean. Would you let us know when you've got this and the previous one posted up on the
I'd
website?
be happy to.
For the videos, that'd be great. And then we're having a little trouble with our